Comic Boot. I'm Kalen.
I'm Cody.
And I'm here.
That'd be James.
We are talking Doom Patrol, the television show.
Also known as Legion, for those of you.
My bad. Legion.
That airs on FX. It is to be the first of at least two. Maybe three X-Men TV
Two for
shows.
sure, because they're doing.
What's the other one that they're doing?
Just X-Men. After this,
it's an X-Men show with Stephen Moyer.
Stephen Moyer from True Blood.
I believe he's cast in it. Yeah.
Do you know who?
Suki.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Suki.
But yeah, Legion and X-Men, but that's separate from.
Is X-Men separate from Legion?
I'm sure they'll come together at some point, because if you'll remember the little sequence in episode 7, I want to say.
With the wheelchair?
Yes. Where he has a talk with his logical self.
Oh, the kid? No.
Himself.
Oh, when he's English and
himself,
he's really
British.
English?
Yeah.
Because he's actually British. Anyway, Legion. Kalen watched it a couple weeks ago.
I watched it from the very beginning.
I've watched it over the last 2 days.
Yes.
Cody hasn't watched it at all, which is fine because Cody is our brain behind the wheel, and he's going to go over some stuff and interject whenever we have questions about comic book accuracy and things like that. But Legion stars the Beast from the new Beauty and the Beast.
Dan Stevens.
And Aubrey Plaza
from Parks and Recreation.
Jean Smart
from Fargo.
And Designing Women. Right? Wasn't she on Designing Women?
I don't know. Jean Smart has
she's like 65 and beautiful.
Yeah, she has a hefty IMDb page.
Jean Smart?
Yeah,
she does.
God, who else? Who was the memory guy?
Oh, I can't remember his name. I saw him in like one other thing, but I can't remember what it was. It might have been it wasn't Dear White People. It might have been Westworld.
Maybe. Anyway, so Legion is a Marvel property, and the backstory of Legion is that he is a super Omega level mutant who is Charles Xavier's son.
Yes.
But they don't touch on that ever. But there's a little what we just referenced.
There's a hint
Easter egg
to his father.
As you see the
wheelchair.
Patrick Stewart wheelchair with the
X on it.
X on it. Patrick Stewart Xavier, not James McAvoy.
I mean, and even during Graham Norton show.
The character you're trying to think of, is it Patanomy Wallace?
Patanomy Wallace.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
He's awesome.
Yeah, especially using the Tommy gun all the time.
I love how retro, it's supposed to be kind of current day, maybe a little bit into the future.
But it feels like you're in the 70s.
Yeah, it's got a real retro vibe that I just love.
It doesn't help that Oliver Berg shows up in a giant ice cube in a crushed yellow leisure suit, listening to jazz, reciting beat poetry, asking if women still wore bras or not.
That's awesome.
He was the best part of that show. Between him and then the Carries.
I love the Carries.
But let's give everybody kind of a little what the fuck is going on. This is Legion.
So the first episode opens and the main character is in a mental institution called Clockworks. And his whole life he has been brought up to believe that he is schizophrenic. But then someone shows up and tells him, you're not schizophrenic. Those voices in your head are other people. You're a telepath. And this girl he meets at Clockworks, who doesn't like to be touched because, surprise, she also is a mutant. And her ability is that when she touches people, they swap places.
It's like Freaky Friday.
Yeah, it's like it's like a much more temporary Freaky Friday.
Lindsay Lohan, it's 3 hours, I think was the longest, right?
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Or what was it? She touched an old man or something, or she was like a little girl and she swapped with an old man, and it was really bizarre.
Or she swapped with her mom and had sex with her mom's boyfriend.
Oh yeah, that too. That was fucked up.
Oh, this show is dark. This show is super dark. It's super it's out there, man.
It is really out there.
It's out there, and it's like I told you. You are lost until you get to the end. I was lost until I got to the end because
it's that big.
I need to have been smoking weed or doing mushrooms watching this fucking thing.
Well, I did it sober and I was fine.
Well, but you're crazy, so it fits.
Thanks. I mean, you're right, but thanks. No, it's because it's matters of the mind and how, you have this organ that is piloting your entire body, and it's so malleable, and it's scary, because look at David Haller. His whole life, he thought this thing was happening to him, or he was constantly being chased around by the devil with yellow eyes, but it turns out it was just a parasite. Known as Amal Farouk, or also known as the Shadow King, who is a villain in X-Men, who preys off powerful psychics, and the origin was that Shadow King went after his father, which it's Professor X.
It is, yeah.
He went over Professor X, who was also a powerful psychic.
X beat him.
X defeated him, and then he sent David off to live with a normal human family, but Shadow King still found him and was like inside David's brain since he was a baby. And so his whole life he thought he was being tormented and seeing things, and which added to the schizophrenia thing. And turns out like he could have led a happy, healthy life, could have learned to control his powers if it weren't for the Shadow King. And it's really fucked up, and it's sad.
Yeah.
That he's just been basically tortured his whole life, seeing these, I guess, demonic images. Because there was the thing you mentioned earlier, the angriest boy in the world with the creepy paper mache head, and
which I want to go as to Comic-Con.
Oh man, but yeah, that devil.
Everybody way the fuck out, dude.
The devil with yellow eyes. Ugh.
So.
Or Lenny. That was another form it took.
Lenny or Benny.
Benny was the real person. Lenny is because it fucked with his memory, so he thought he had a dog. They never had a dog.
See, there's so many
Benny
holes
became
that,
Lenny.
Like, I don't know. So anyway, he's in a mental institution. He proceeds to have this relationship with Amy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Amy's his sister. You're thinking of
Is it Jessica?
Rachel.
So he proceeds to have a
Amy
relationship.
Is played by
Kate Azelton from
The League.
But anyway, so he proceeds to have this relationship with her. She is cleared to get out of Clockworks, and he is nowhere to be seen to say goodbye. So this whole thing jump starts at the very end of that episode by him rushing to her and then kissing. They switch bodies, and he starts freaking out, or she starts freaking out in his body, not knowing how to control his powers, and basically
kills everybody.
Kills almost everyone. There's no more doors in the hallways. I mean, she morphs all the doors into walls. She traps herself in one of these rooms, and she is basically abducted. Well, he takes off, kind of lives his life in her body,
for
fills
like
himself
the next
up
couple
and,
hours.
Goes and eats lunch, and then he transforms back. And in that time, this group of people from what's the organization that they're from?
D3, Division 3,
show up and obtain Jessica, but she looks like David.
Yeah.
And they're on their way to D3, Division 3, and she changes back and she goes, surprise.
She's like, sorry guys.
Yep. So
surprise.
Somehow she,
or no, she wasn't obtained by people from Division 3. She was obtained by her own people.
That's right. She was obtained by Jean Smart's group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they think that they have David, but then it's her, and then they think, where's David? And that's when David gets picked up by Division 3.
But this is like, there's so many mental flashbacks or flash sidewayses, or, I'm in your memories, I'm not in your memories, I'm in your head, because this is the only safe place that we can talk, type thing that goes on here. You have to suspend reality completely. And I have a hard time doing that. Where comic books are
really?
Shut up.
I had no idea, Mr. I take everything so literally.
I don't. I don't. Okay? I just like my comic book heroes to be
you just like
ground level.
Because you like it to be...
I don't like to read about gods.
You like to be straightforward.
Yeah.
You're just like, hey, he's a drug dealer, I'm going to punch him in the face.
Fuck him up.
But whereas I would like things...
That's why in episode 8, when the guy comes back and he's, severely deformed...
The guy from the first episode.
From Division 3, who basically not necessarily tortured David, but
Was trying to get information out
from
of him.
He comes back and half of his face is burnt, and you immediately meet his husband and their adopted child, and you're like, I gotta care for this asshole now? No, he's a bad guy.
Well, there isn't really a bad guy. I'm sure people think Magneto is a bad guy, but he's not really a bad guy because he thinks what he's doing is right.
Right.
And that's what
And that's
this
the thing
Division 3 guy is. It's the same thing because he even said in the episode, I am terrified because you're gods, and what will you do when you realize you don't need us anymore?
Well, but anyway, so they eventually rescue David, and David struggles to learn how to control his abilities.
Because
And,
he spent his whole life thinking he's schizophrenic. He
Yeah.
never learned how to control them.
and they do a lot of exercises which are very interesting to watch because they go into his memories, and his memories with Wallace and Gene Smart, and they go into his memories, and they keep on having these problems in his memories.
Things are being
erased or
omitted
glitched out.
and glitched, and they don't know why.
Yeah, and so in order to go deeper, they sedate him, and in sedating him, he kind of turns into a juvenile version of himself.
His inner child.
Yeah, and they go to where I think it was his psychiatrist's office,
Yes.
and the wall begins to break, and these red hands and this red light comes through it, and the only people that can see it are Jessica and himself. That's as a small kid. And
Yeah.
he gets scared and runs off, and she follows him, and she basically follows him into ethereal plane. I don't know how else to put it, but
Or what the astral
The astral
plane.
plane.
astral plane. And so, in doing so, they kind of get lost. And this is scary as shit, man, because the fat-headed Shadow King, the yellow-eyed Shadow King, and
The devil with yellow eyes.
then you get the
The
boy,
angriest boy in the world.
and it's scary. They use jump scares, the music they use, the sounds they use.
It's horror elements.
It's horror. I mean, I will argue this 8 episodes is a long, like 7-hour long horror movie because it is. It is. It's
In
a
your
horror
opinion.
movie. It is though, man. If you look at it, there's so many horror elements in this. They have zombies in the episode where they go back. Where that whole episode where
she traps them, or when the Shadow King traps them all in a fake reality.
Right.
Through David's powers
But there's
of telepathy.
zombies there. The whole thing about the Shadow King crushing the creepy curly-headed dude.
Oh, yeah.
And then his face melting off. You know, I mean, there's a lot of horror elements.
There's a lot of gore in it.
And then the eyes that pop up on the walls in that episode also. I mean, it's
when
uneasy.
when it's Aubrey Plaza's eyes looking around through
Yeah,
the
there's a lot of horror in this, and they use it smartly, I guess.
I mean,
it's
but they
not
don't-
for me, but I see the beauty in it.
I mean, it's done so well, and it's not like other things from horror genre where it's just, blood and guts and blah blah blah.
No, it's not.
It's creepy, and it really kind of gets under your skin,
It does.
and that's what makes it good, because it's fulfilling the purpose that it was meant to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So for the first 5 episodes or so, it's David wrestling with his memories. His sister gets kidnapped by Division 3, and he keeps on demanding to go, and
Because he's at a point now where he can kind of read minds, or he senses that his sister's in
Right.
trouble, and he talks to her telepathically.
but there's a scene in, I think it's the second episode, whenever he's first with Gene Smart. It's at the very beginning, where he's in bed and he's freaking out because he hears all these voices because he's off his meds.
Yeah,
And she leans down to him and she goes, "Imagine a knob."
yeah.
And that whole scene, that visual scene, is played of the knobs. There's a lot of knobs, if you notice in the show.
Mhm.
Like when Oliver Bird in episode 8, he's moving all those knobs around.
Yeah.